What is this again? It's I show my screen here. I'm trying to remember. Cool. There we go. There we go. Alright. No. What's this? Is that on? Yeah, because that's my screen. Alrighty. Live. So, 10-minute chess. I figure we could listen to.
Do you want to get married?
Yeah, I want to get married. But more out of necessity of like producing a male heir,
Oh,
is really the whole point.
Great.
No, I'm just listening. I'm just observing. You can keep going. Continue.
She's like, we can keep going.
No, because I mean, I would prefer to get a handle on what you think from your mouth.
That's very
before I
Chinese of
say
him, though.
anything.
You know, just only men. So he doesn't want any female children. It's very Chinese.
Yeah, no, I think they're awake on this question. You know, I mean, as far as like
Well,
marriage
it's
goes.
more about population control there rather than.
Well,
getting
and
rid of
it's like the old world stuff about like a dowry and like, you know, gendered stuff and all that. But, you know, at least for me, it's sort of like a pride thing. Like, I want to produce a male heir to take on my name, take on my legacy and all that. And, you know, marriage is
So
sort of
fucking
pursuant to
sexist.
that
Oh
goal.
my
But, you know,
God.
I don't know about this whole prospect of like living with a woman for the rest of my
It's really
life.
hard to
Like,
play out
you know, it
with the
sounds good at
relatives.
first.
Yeah.
It sounds
You're
like
gonna
kind of
take-
fun or interesting. You don't have to do laundry. You
You're
don't have to worry about kind of taking care of the
Don't
house. But,
have
you know, then the
too
prospect of
much
just
to
like,
really
it goes on and on and on.
do
And it's
in addition
decade
to
after
that.
decade after
I think I
decade. And,
will come.
you know, I don't know how thrilled I am with that whole idea. You know, I'm kind of a solitary individual. I like my privacy. I like my autonomy. And just the idea of like nagging GF, nagging wife. It's a little nightmarish to
Do you
me.
have a good relationship with your mum?
I love my mom. Yeah, I love my mom.
Is your mum a stay-at-home mom? What does she do?
Yeah, so she works now, but you know, when me and my sister were growing up, she raised me. She quit her job to stay at home and raise us.
And what's your sister like? Do you get on with her?
Yeah, she's my twin. She's probably the opposite of me. She's more calm, sort of introverted. Yeah, but we get along.
Do you respect women?
Of course.
Of course.
But you just don't want them to have any rights.
Well, I didn't say that. I didn't
Okay.
say they shouldn't have
It's
rights.
like the same.
But
Like he's just so weird.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, if you don't want them to vote or drive or have an existence akin to what they would have in, say, Saudi Arabia, you would say that in large part, then they don't really have rights.
Well, I would say probably the ideal is something more like Afghanistan, if I'm being totally honest. Like
And
recent,
so what's the
recent
difference between
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan then and Saudi Arabia?
Like the brutality, I guess. It's like a little, slightly more brutal. Of course, Taliban rule, not American rule. I'm talking about, you know, recent Afghanistan.
So you want women to have the same treatment as women have under Taliban rule in Afghanistan?
Something approximating that, yeah,
Okay.
because, you know,
It's hard
you think
to
about the
just,
Taliban
you know,
and, you know, what they're able to achieve.
give
Here
us
you
the
have these
definition,
guys
but we wrap
with
this all
nothing
up
but,
real quick.
you know, some light arms and rags and 20 years, and they were able to defeat the largest military in history. think that has something to do with the fact that they weren't like distracted. You know, they weren't distracted with the kinds of things we are in America. They weren't being nagged. You know, they weren't being bossed around by women. And, you know, now they've got this society where there's this brutality, like I said, this old world sort of order. And you bring up like voting. I don't see really voting as a right, if I'm being totally honest.
Don't
Like,
see
it's not
voting as
just
a
women.
right.
There's a lot of people that really shouldn't be voting anymore.
Such as.
You know, maybe people that don't own property, young people, people that work like retail jobs. Like, as an example, really? Well,
No,
here we
that's
are,
just
here we are.
funny. People that work retail jobs.
Well,
Okay,
or like
I think we
service
can all get
jobs.
on board with that national movement. It's like, with the service that you're getting, it's like, man, you couldn't even get my change right. I don't know if you're going to be able to
No,
correct the
there was
president
I
of
was
the
in
United
I was
States.
in Lowe's earlier, and a young man helped me who's actually a fan of both of us, who was super lovely, and I would like him to vote. He was great. He was very clever.
Well, you know, the thing about retail or these service jobs is like, you know, you look at these young people, it's a lot of millennials, Generation Z, and they really don't know how things work. You know what I mean? Like, if you own a business, if you own property, even if you're a homeowner, you kind of have an idea of like how
Worst
things
case scenario,
work, you know,
it's
like
like
where
just
things
pawn
come
and
from, and
Just buy
some
yourself
idea of
resources
like how
that
the economy
you can
works.
take on, so
And
terrible.
you know, if your whole life is like, okay, you're in school, you're a student,
that's okay.
you
I'm
pay
okay with that.
rent. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even manage like how your apartment runs. Like, how should you have a say in how the country is run? You don't even really know how anything comes together in
I mean,
society. So, you know, the
It's one of
old
the
way in
shit
America
sides of
was that
democracy.
it was, of course, propertied white men. It was a very narrow group of people that were able to vote, and that's because the founding fathers didn't really believe in mass democracy, universal suffrage. They believed in checks and balances, and kind of voting was a part of like checking the power of the ruling class or the regime with the power of the people. But you know, they weren't under any illusions about this idea that like every person should have a vote. One man, one woman, one child, one vote. You know, they didn't believe that. So, you know, that's not how the country was founded. That's not how the system was set up. And that was for a reason. So I think it was a big mistake in the past 100 years to just open it up to everybody. You know, we have to think about how we're going to have competent government and who's going to make those choices. And, you know, we have to think competent people should be making those choices.
Quick, if I were to ask you, like, let's start with
Didn't have
rights.
any really
Let's start
enticing
with,
reasons, maybe
access
some
to something very
background
simple.
stuff.
Let's go to an amendment.
You
Let's
know,
go to
take up
19th
some
Amendment.
space.
Right? Let's start there. Let's just start
Gone.
there.
All right.
Gone.
All right.
Day
What do you
one.
thought? All right. Day one gone.
It shouldn't be there.
I have
Shouldn't
a
be
question though. Have you ever lived in any other country besides the United States?
There. Nope.
Okay,
Just
so
America.
when you talk about many of these things, these are just from an observational
That's probably
standpoint.
great
We've done a
just
lot of
because it gives
reading
me
and
this
observed a bunch of things.
Yes.
And then
you know, have
arrived
that
at your
disappear,
conclusions
but-
based on that.
Yeah.
But you have no practical experience living under, say, a more
For the
authoritarian.
record.
No, well, I mean, I already
people
live
that-
under something like authoritarianism in America. You know, I'm on the
Mm.
no-fly
I
list.
mean,
I'm
it's
being
just,
persecuted.
obviously
The thing is about
inflammatory.
authoritarianism is it can't be condemned in itself, you know, because the character of the regime isn't really
Oh.
authority. The authority is colored by the
Hold on.
people that are in authority.
Not to interrupt you, sorry, but just to back up for a second. So you're currently on a no-fly list based on the authoritarianism that's going on in the country.
Right.
Now that authoritarianism, you could argue, is from the left, and the left are very happy that they have that authoritarianism. So what you want
Mm.
is a right-wing authoritarianism.
Yes.
But your issue is with left-wing authoritarianism.
The problem is not authoritarianism.
So
the
what-
problem is leftism.
What about the people on the left who think of you and go, well, I don't want to live under his rule of law? Because obviously there are people who don't
Well,
think like
this
you do.
is
We're
the
not a
essence
monolith.
of politics. This is the essence of politics, is that there is an us and there is a them. There
Sure.
are right-wing people and there are left-wing people, and, you know, people have varying identities with different levels of salience. But, yes, the problem is that we are not in control of the regime, ultimately. The problem is not the regime itself or power, because the thing is, and this is the problem, is that conservatives are sort of naive about power. Power, you know, we're not getting rid of it anytime soon. You know, this idea of like, take over the government to let everybody go and free the people. It's like there will always be concentrated, centralized power. And the question is, well, who's going to wield it? Are we going to forfeit the playing field to the left? This is essentially what conservatives have done because they're averse to rule. You know, like when conservatives get in control of Congress or the presidency, what do? Do they go aggressively like the left does and wield the bureaucracy and wield the Congress? Or do they kind of just, you know, well, we're going to cut your taxes and we're going to do this and that, and then the left comes in with a vengeance and they say, we're going to use environmental regulations to take your gun rights, and we're going to use the IRS to go after, you know, conservative nonprofits, and we're going to do this, and we're going to solidify our rule, and then we are going to set the tone for the country. And conservatives then, even like when Trump gets into office, it's like, what did we accomplish in the first 2 years? When we had Congress, we had the courts, we had the White House, we did a corporate tax cut, barely repealed Obamacare. That's about it. We should have built a wall. We should have went after the endowments for the universities. We should have targeted left-wing institutions. We should have opened up the libel laws and went after the media. So, conservatives just aren't playing the game. We've got to wake up to the reality of power politics, engage and play. And so back to the original point, the problem is not that there is power, that there is authority. There will always be authority. There has to be authority. The question is who is going to wield it. And, right-wing people have to do that, which is why I said earlier, if Trump became like, the Caesar of America, hypothetically, if he had got in 16 and said, you know what, I'm not leaving, and the courts tell me that I have to leave, well, I'll disobey them, and he went full, Andrew Jackson, I would support it. I wouldn't say, this is authoritarianism. This is in principle wrong. I would say, this is the right man for the job. This is a rightful ruler of America, and, and I would be okay with that.
You bring up Caesar, but didn't that end pretty poorly for them?
No, the empire.
The empire ended pretty poorly.
That is a big thing,
after
I think you need to be able to assess, like, oh, is it really true that my side's always right? And then just make the counter examples. Oh, this is annoying. I want to keep it clean. I'd do this, honestly. It doesn't seem like you have a great way to counter some of that stuff, so. Yeah, it's fine if he wants to do that. It's not ideal. We'll try maybe do this. And so, you can
Hundreds of years.
Well, we've been around for about 400. How many we got left?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's just it. The Roman Republic was around, and then it gave birth to a true empire ruled by a Caesar, and then, they reached their zenith under the empire. So I don't necessarily think that's the worst thing in the world.
I just find it interesting, though, that you're promoting these ideas having not ever lived under them. I just find that that's such a, it's hard to say let's paint the entire house blue when you've never seen a blue house.
Well, I mean, do I need to go to Russia to...
Yes, probably.
Why? I mean, why?
I mean, I'll give you an example. A very good friend of mine who I've known for about 10 years used to be very much like you, actually. And he, he's someone who used to really, really prop up authoritarianism. He used to, and he still believes this in part, that people do need to be governed to a large extent because people, left alone are morons. And that's not saying necessarily that I even disagree with. I think your average person is probably as dumb as a bag of rocks. However, he moved to Singapore, which you could argue is not the worst place in the world. Obviously, it's quite clean. People, follow the law. The crime rate is reasonably low. But after about 2 years of living in Singapore, where they knock on your door, and this has happened to him, where he got dobbed in by his neighbors for having water on his balcony, and they said it's causing a mosquito problem. Now we're at your house, prepared to fine you over mosquitoes. He said to me, I hate living in this country. I hate the authoritarianism here. I hate the way that things operate. Because coming from Australia, he's an Aussie, he was like, I much prefer the way that we do things back home, or at least, the freedom that we have. And living in a country where that's staunched in some capacity was really, and it is, and continues to be very bothersome and trying for him. And so I just find it interesting, though, that you've only ever lived in the United States. I just you can only do so much reading before practical experience actually should take, some sort of precedence. And I mean, I say the same thing about women too. I mean, I dare say, from my understanding of many of your viewpoints, you also promote the way of interacting with women, and I go, have you been in a relationship with a woman?
No.
So how are you telling other people how to behave towards women when you yourself have not had any actual physical, interaction with them in a romantic capacity, or in fact in any capacity where you, uphold them in a way that treats them with respect? I mean, if you're out here arguing that women are basically half the value of, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, in fact, because that's not right. But, if you are looking to some other regimes around the world that do think that women are half the value of a man, I have to question what kind of a person who's had no experience with women is in a position to basically promote these ideas.
Well, I'm having an experience with a woman right now. And I've had lots of experiences with women in my life, not romantically per se, but, I've talked to enough women. I've been in, I've known enough women to know sort of what's going on. And I think any man who is
Yeah,
observant
too.
enough,
That's so
and honestly, like I said, we could go back to great geniuses. We could go back to people that have been in relationships. Like a perfect example is like the pickup artists. Have you ever noticed that pickup artists who have the most relationships with women and the most sex, what they say is that really with women, it's the same bag of tricks. To seduce a woman or whatever, and I think that kind of tells you something about the nature of women, that you go from woman to woman, and it's the same kind of like little tricks, little things you could say or whatever to kind of hack them and whatever, and I think that kind of says it all about their nature. So
What does it say about our nature, Nick?
well, it says that they're not fully rational. I don't believe that like
shit.
men they possess a sort of full rationality. I think that
Rationality towards what specifically? Or
rationality
just
entirely,
generally?
sort of objective. Yeah, I don't think they're capable of that. I think that a male has a real
God, it's like they're
impersonal
probably the
sense
most-
of rationality and reason. I think that a female sense is far more personal, and that derives from the fact that women are made to bear children. Women are made with their wombs to bear children, and so I think their whole consciousness is basically it's wrapped up, it's bound up in this idea that they've got to carry a child and then raise a child. And I think that the impersonality, rationality, objectivity suffers from this. But in any case, to get back to the original question, which is about experience, I don't think that I need to live in Russia to know that we would rather have right-wing people running America than left-wing people. I think that's kind of an asinine sort of thing which people like to trot out, and they say, well, you haven't, we could qualify it with all kinds of things, but the way that we live in America is unacceptable. I mean, there's homeless people everywhere. The crime's out of control. It's a corrupt country. It's a failing country. And, we want to have
countries,
competent
Nick, around
leadership.
the world that have right-wing leadership still have many of those issues, and in fact, they're exacerbated oftentimes by the governments that are in power. So, and I would say too, I think it's a bit of a straw man to say that what I'm arguing here, I'm not even arguing, I'm just posing questions really, because I'm interested to hear your viewpoints. However, I'm not saying, I agree with you in the sense that we should have, right-wing leadership. I prefer to live under a right-wing government, so to speak, although I am more on Eric's side of things these days, where I'm edging closer and closer towards anarchism. But, I'm not suggesting that I would rather a left-wing government over a right-wing one. I'm simply saying, having never lived under the autocratic rule that you seem to be promoting in some capacity, I'm having a hard time understanding how you can say that this would be the best way to go about doing things when you actually have no practical experience. That's all it is.
Where do we see, I'm wondering
That's
right
all
now,
I'm
but where
saying.
do we see Christ-based, like, theocratic? I think isn't that more of what you're for, is like more like a
theocracy?
monarchy?
No, you're talking about theocracy.
No, but not necessarily just theocracy, but I'm just saying, like, in some way with authority.
Like Iran.
I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
You mean like
Yeah.
the divine right of kings?
But I'm saying that's Muslim. Yeah, but like a Christian version of, let's just say, maybe a Christian version of Iran, but not the exact government system. I'm just saying, like, where do we actually see that? Because I could just be sounding like an idiot here, but I don't know if we have any of that sanctified or
great.
left in its own original state of like a
I
Christian
don't think that's great either.
autocratic type of rule. Do we have that? I don't know where we have it.
Not,
Like
not
at a
in
large
this day
scale,
and age.
like
Not in this day and age.
Like Poland, kind of, but not really. Like that's what I'm
More
saying.
like Hungary. More like Hungary would be more comparable because, Viktor Orban, who's not perfect, but he's very good. In Hungary, he articulated, I think, a few years ago, he gave a speech at a university and talked about
Well, if he does
a
that,
new
I will
Christian
just take
nationalism
it.
in Europe as opposed to,
All
other
day.
forms of nationalism or other kinds of democracy, and articulated, and it's not quite, what I'm talking about, a sort of autocratic rule inspired by religion, but it's a closer approximation of that. But
Even if he
you're right,
takes
we
you,
don't really
I can
have
take
that.
that
And
with
is this a
Jackie
symptom
Hall,
of
before
modernity? Is this
we
liberalism? It's probably been, 100 years
All
since
these-
we've had any kind of meaningful Christian autocratic rule anywhere in the world. And all you have to look at is the experience of history. This experiment of overthrowing the kings and overthrowing the gods, it's been a complete disaster. I mean, think about how Europe and America used to be 100 years ago. I mean, it's no contest compared to the kind of scum and degeneracy and the awful things that we see today. And all that we want is a restoration of that. And I'm a real conservative in the sense that I don't believe that we're going to get to heaven on this side of death, right? So I don't know that we're going to get to I don't know. We're not going to have a perfect society. But it's a question of what kind of a society are we going to live in? What kinds of problems do we want? Do we want to have the excesses, perhaps, of a Christian autocratic rule and sometimes the cruelty or things that come with that? Or do we want to live in the environment we live in now, where mankind is killing itself. People are not having children, and it's sickness and depravity, and children are being harmed and corrupted. I mean, I don't think it gets very much worse than where we are today, outside of some exceptional circumstances in history. So to me, that's really the real. It's about what kind of society, what's the character of the country we want to live in.
What I will say is that
over
I agree
here,
with
so I can
Nick
stop
on
him
the
from
sense
coming in
that,
here.
when leftists get power, unlike what the conservatives do, they are full steam ahead, and they will punish their political enemies. They will rule over them, and I think it got that way, and that's just not really to my point, because of this long-term sort of infiltration process where they got basically hold of every single institution, and now we just kind of see it come into fruition more than what we've ever had, because we can see it. You know what I mean? Social media, technology, all of this connectivity. Where I differ is more so because I don't see the conservatives as, okay, wielding it and doing nothing. I think of it more as, to me, and maybe this is just through my lens, is that they ensure the power structure of leftists, and they set them up for success to then fuck us over. Let's call it what it is. And again, when I say punish their political enemies, I want to be direct and I want to be clear here. I see them as the direct enemy here, considering all the subcultures that I'm involved in, and they're controlled by leftists, and they've been running the bitch into the ground for as long as I've been alive. It's just been accelerated over certainly the last decade. But I would much rather, and going back to my original point of like pulling the rug certainly from under them, because I can understand that at least in our lifetimes, with government, it may be present in this geographical area. Is that going to be difficult to get away from? Potentially. However, I do think the scale of that can certainly change within our lifetimes. I do think that that's certainly achievable.
But I am saying that on the side note, you were noting because yes, we have special buttons and we can chat to each other on the show. Is that Sydney doesn't know anything about you really, I mean, besides what she's heard on there, and she's like.
And I do want to say, like, I've said I do know many of your views on women, which I find abhorrent. I'm going to be honest. I don't agree with you in any capacity on that front for obvious reasons.
Figures.
But I actually went into this reasonably, like, not really knowing your broader, views on things, and so I don't really have an opinion of you, if I'm honest. And so that's why, I mean, it's really funny. People are like, Sydney's really triggered, and I'm honestly just sitting here just listening and just, getting a feel for things. But I was saying to Elijah, it's interesting. I think you're being very respectful. And I think that's really nice because people make you out to be this, assassin that's going to just stab everybody in the face. And I think you are being very respectful, and you're obviously very polite in person. But dude, your followers are very interesting people.
Yes.
And I find it interesting how you appear certainly one way in person. And I would say you're nice in person, and then in the chat I don't understand. Are you aware that your followers are like this?
Well, they're very animated, very enthusiastic. The thing is that the thing about our people, me and my followers, is that we are really friends in a big way. And so you really can't divorce this from how we are. I mean, when you take a look at my followers or groypers or somebody like myself, I mean, we really have been treated unfairly by society. Some people say, hey, your followers aren't very polite, or they're very rowdy or something like that.
I think it's more than that, Nick. Though I think that they, like, for example, they attack Elijah personally. They attack me personally. There's
a phrase for it being called groiped, right? Am I
That's
right?
right.
I don't think that.
Got groiped.
I mean, you can extend this into other people who've been horrible to you personally, and that's completely fair. If they, want to go for them, fine. But if I'm just asking you questions merely to dig into your viewpoints, which I think is a fair thing to do on a show like this, I don't know why anybody would turn that into a personal attack. Now, I don't care. Like, do whatever. Like,
I think the word you're looking for is pieces of shit.
Well, I mean, it's just like, I don't get it. Like, and if you do think you're oppressed, which is
but that's
fine,
what I'm getting at, is that's why there's sort of a defensive posture, is because if you look at my experience and the experience of people that I know, it's being subject to horrible lies and slander, and so
but Nick, all of us
that's
are
how it
though
goes.
in this space. I
Yeah,
mean, like,
but not
Elijah
really quite on the
apparently
same
is a
level.
terrorist. Dude, have the stuff that this kid's been exposed to? I mean, like, he's on the same level as.
But I did have a federal credential, so I got out. But I did get. I'm saying, like, did you read? I'm going to tell you this. Did you read how he
Yes.
got rid of his Twitter's ADL
Yes,
expose.
I did actually. Yes, I did see that.
Can I just say this? So, like, I know you're explaining this, so I really am not trying to get in the way. But what is so interesting was that if you read the ADL thing, and you laugh at this too. Like, I started to think about this of why Nick Fuentes is evil, right? So, like, because I know that this is what everybody does. And the first time I had to interview him, I got this whole email, all this shit I had to add before I introduced him. But it's like everybody's always like, oh, Nick's evil. Like, the only reason why people think he's evil and like go on that is because the gatekeepers that hate him. People are afraid of pissing them off because when you really look at Nick's like life, but he's an anti-Semite. And so first of all, but people say this, right? And it's like, well, why? And it's like he made this joke about cookies and the Jews, and I go, okay, I don't know about you, but I'm not a bitch enough to actually care about that. Like, I literally the humor thing, like it's like people always say, well, I wouldn't say that. I haven't said that.
What this is, but I don't talk.
No. But
YouTube already hates us.
Yes, but I'm saying no. But I'm saying like
show me afterwards.
It's
and
like
then
okay,
I can
so
understand,
if you
'cause
wouldn't,
I don't know what that is.
no, but if you wouldn't say it, then just don't say it. But did you really think someone's evil because they made a joke? And then it's like, well, yeah, but you're not supposed to question that. It's like, well, I come from the intellectual movement where literally you can question anything, and it doesn't mean that it's that anytime someone's trying to say that you're immoral for asking questions, or clearly have bad motives, are ignorant, or a part of something, whether it's the pandemic or climate change, let people ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because when I read the ADL defamation article about him, it was like 90% of the things that they said about him that were evil were just like normal mainstream conservative like ideas. It was like, he questions the election. And he believes in right-wing authoritarianism, and it was like he believes the right wing should be the only wing. And then there's like the only part that's like probably different than the average person is that he's made inappropriate jokes on camera versus people have probably made similar jokes off camera. And I read it and I was waiting for it to be like called for arms, called for terrorism, called for the Ku Klux Klan to be reinstated, called for lynchings. Like, I'm going through this article, it's so in depth, and it's basically the end of it was like, this guy makes bad jokes. And he says sarcastic things. And he also doesn't know if Biden is there because of votes. And I read it and I'm like, this is the worst hit piece on this guy. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, but like she was saying, it occurred to me, go, why everyone thinks Nick is the worst guy in the world is because of the way his followers act towards people, and they can't disconnect. No, but I'm saying, like, they can't disconnect because they hear things about you that are exaggerated, but then they interact with, like, you get Groit and they get these people, so they assume they connect it, like, Nick is just trying to, like, infiltrate and hurt my life. But when people meet you like she did, she's like, this is actually not who I thought I was about to meet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a polite, amicable. I'm a human being. I'm a human being. I'm a free thinker. And ultimately, my job is to provoke. Like, when I decided to do my show, I wanted to do something novel. A lot of people, when they were my age or even my age now, and they start a podcast, they want to start a podcast and they want to do like the Ben Shapiro show too. Like, I'm going to do a show and say the same things that Shapiro does, or the same things that, their favorite commentator does. And my idea was, well, I want to go and say what I think, my original thoughts, my thinking. And I think that it's so boring, the expectation that we're going to be in media. We're in this disastrous time right now, catastrophic time. We're all supposed to go on here and just say, hi, well, great to be here. I love low taxes, and I'm a conservative, and all this kind of stuff. And, like, the idea of my show is, like, let's be provocative. Let's play devil's advocate. When I say things about, like, we should be more like the Taliban, it's partly joking, but there's also partly truth. And that's sort of meant to suss out and antagonize, interrogate the truth, and arrive at maybe, if we can think about the world in a different way, in a way that, maybe we don't think about it usually, in a way that some people think is abhorrent, maybe we could arrive at something more true, certainly something more interesting. And I guess that's the biggest problem is, I don't want to say that my whole life, of course I'm self-righteous and I'm fighting for a cause, but a lot of it is just mischief. A lot of it's just fun. A lot of the things that I do and say, I do without thinking sometimes because they're funny, because they're interesting. It's like, what if we just run with this, like the Cookie Monster thing or whatever. I'm not the kind of guy that says, oh no, we can't say that on this show. That is reprehensible, because we're all adults, we're all in this life, and I think you have to have a sense of humor about it. And that's just one of the things that they weaponize. If you have a sense of humor, if you have any degree of authenticity or realness.
Shapiro was really mad about that.
Well, he doesn't like it.
But to your point, Elijah, go ahead.
So hold on a second there. I'm sorry to shush you.
Go ahead.
I get what you're saying, like making jokes and being funny, or at least trying to get your, trying to antagonize people. That's one thing. There's plenty of people who do that. Like, you're not the first person to try it, and obviously you're quite successful at it. But I would say, I mean, don't you think to some extent that polarizing people doesn't reach? If you really want to get your point across, and you really want to change people's minds, and you really want to push this agenda that you have here to push, because obviously you have strong feelings, and obviously you care about the trajectory of America, probably even the planet, and you do care about right-wing values, and you do care about conservative values. So do you think that perhaps to some extent polarizing people who otherwise might listen to you is maybe not the best course of action? Because obviously there are people who are going to love you regardless, right? There are people who automatically agree with you, who think you're fantastic, and a lot of them in our chat at the moment who really, really think you're wonderful. But then there's a bunch of people who might, warm to your ideas if you weren't saying like, yeah, let's do this, that, and the other, things that they might find inaccessible. Like, I guess I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but, in my opinion, the truth is polarizing. When Jesus came, he said, I came to divide people. I came to bring a sword. I'm going to separate people in their own houses. And, I think this kind of equivocating, like, well, I understand your perspective, but, listen, I think this kind of equivocation that people does is actually doing more harm than good, because it obfuscates the real truth. And when I come on my show, it's raw, it's uncut, like the truth is. And I'm giving it to people, I'm delivering it to people, and they might not like it. Some people, I think it resonates very strongly, and they like that. The biggest problem is the people who are righteous in this country, I think, are too timid. They don't have the boldness, they don't have the courage to alienate people. Particularly with conservatives, they want to be liked by everybody. You ever notice this? Liberals don't care if conservatives like them. Conservatives really care that liberals like them. And they talk in such a way that they want liberals to like them, and they want women to like them. They want black people to like them. You hear conservatives talk about race, and they're tiptoeing around it, very delicate, walking on eggshells, because we don't want to offend the black people. And same thing with women. Well, we got to be delicate about it. We don't want to offend the women. And, I think a lot of this is because of the society that we live in, where you've got to sell products to a mass audience of people from different races and different genders, and we live in a mass democracy, and you've got to win all the votes. But me, as somebody that is strictly an entertainer and a truth teller, I'm really unconcerned with the sort of popularity of my personage or my views. I'm about going in there and saying what needs to be said. And if people are influenced by that, and they want to go and play that game and equivocate, and they want to say, well, I think what Nick is trying to say is, they can go and do that, but I'm really more, to me, my concern is just getting that message out there and getting the truth out there. And people, I think, should be more concerned about telling the truth, being real, being raw, being who they are, than sort of overthinking it in this sort of self-conscious, like, how are we going to cleverly maneuver and strategize? Like, I'm just going on my show live every night and saying, listen, here's how it is. I'm independent. I'm a free thinker. I'm not paid by anybody. I don't have to worry about sponsors or whatever. And here's the real deal. And so that's my philosophy.
Alex Jones said something similar, but he also came to learn that the power of what he was saying influenced other people. So while you may be a little more rational and measured, it seems as though the following you built doesn't understand when you're being satirical or you're making a joke. So do you have concerns that maybe they're going to ruin your message?
Not really, only because, I really have no control over what happens after I tell the message. And, once again, we can get caught up in, like...
But isn't it your movement?
Yeah, it is, of course.
So shouldn't you have some sort of control as someone in favor of authoritarianism?
Well, I mean, I control, like, an organization, and I control the messaging that comes from me and from my show. But as far as, like, what my followers take from that, I can't control how people respond to it or how they interpret it. And I don't necessarily think that's the responsibility of an author or of a speaker or something, of a truth teller. That'd be one thing if I was like a politician or something, or if I was leading a club, if like my club member, if I was leading like, hi, this is the Groyper Club, members only, and some guy was out there saying, hey, you know what? And he was a representative of something that I led. That would be one thing. But, me going and doing my show, I don't even know who's watching it. It's it's a mass audience online, and they can take that and do what they will. And the most that I could say is clarify my views where there's ambiguity or where people are taking it out of context. But I think it gets away from the duty and the obligation in this time of people to tell the truth. The onus is always on the truth teller. We live in a corrupt society of lies and deception, and whenever anybody tells the truth, it's like, well, but that's offensive. Well, but don't you think that's not really strategic? Or don't you think people are going to mistake that and take that out of context? It's like, I'm more worried about the fact that we're in this empire of lies, and we got to tell straight up and to some degree have faith in the message and have faith in people that it's going to go and do what it needs to do.
I'm interested why you say that you and your following are oppressed.
If they repeat their
well, I mean,
narrative
just take a look at what's happened to me in particular over the past 5 years. I mean, I'm probably the most censored person in America or in the world. I'm banned I'm so thoroughly banned. I talked about this on Slightly Offensive. You can't even search my name on TikTok. Like, I'm banned from TikTok, and you can't search Nick Fuentes. It says that's a hateful term. I made a music playlist on Spotify for the summer. Songs, Miley Cyrus, Radiohead, whatever. And they banned the music playlist because I made it. I'm banned from Twitter, Facebook, every social media. I'm debanked. They closed one of my business checking accounts last week. Didn't even tell me. They just sent the account balance and a check in the mail. I logged into the app. Your account doesn't exist here anymore. I'm on a no-fly list. And then you add to that.
They took your money. The feds took your money, too.
Yeah, and then the Fed seized $500,000 from me earlier this year. So, it goes on and on. And it's also in the conservative movement. Like, I'm also on the blacklist for CPAC. My name is on a list at CPAC where I can't enter.
It's whatever. They're gay.
Yeah, they suck.
They suck.
I'm not really
I'm
missing
just gonna put it
anything.
out there.
Going
I
party
mean,
with Lady MAGA
The
and
people who run
Caitlyn Jenner.
CPAC, I don't know.
It's a
Blaze
Eric's
might get
wet dream. What? A weekend with Lady MAGA?
Not interested.
your face is just so.
He's like, I'm gonna say, like, it actually makes me laugh because this is actually the true statement. Is that's why when you actually listen to Nick, not just out of context, it's like you listen to someone like Eric and it almost sounds like the same thing. I mean, obviously with different, like you said, different variations of the right wing, so slightly different. But it's like, it is true though. This is why sometimes it's like sucks to be a white commentator. The shit you can get away with when you're black, like, it's like literally Sab was just like on the show, like I get in trouble, get a strike, anything, like, for I say anything, and Sab was just like on the show. She's like, you know what? I am a bigot. I am a homophobe. I don't. There's like a couple gays I like, and overall, I'm just done with these people. And I was like, literally would get a strike if I was like to make that claim. But Sab's like, someone's watching, like, little brown woman. It's okay. You're oppressed. You can say what you want, and that's like the funniest shit. It's like, even when you go on, like, we were talking about that, like the black people on Twitter talking about genociding the white population, and then it was like that just stayed online. It was like, all right, whatever. That's completely cool. Even, I have a video playing that on YouTube, and they're like, that's cool. Keep that one up. It's on this show. And then if you mirrored that, like, if you're a white guy and you just like say half the shit that Brandon says, like, Brandon just says stuff, I'm like, all right, we can get in trouble for this.
Apparently
just
not.
No, but it is.
Oh, do not tempt fate.
But no. But what I was gonna say is, like, this is what's interesting is that like with Nick, it's that.
No, but I still want to know why the audience is oppressed.
That's what I'm saying, though. Wait,
Oppressed?
that's what I'm saying about the oppressed thing is that the attacks, like we were talking about this, that you are a target, and once they choose that you're a target, then they'll just do everything to make an example of you, and that's what I think the oppression was, is that it's like, look, Nick made some Jew jokes, he has some opinions on Israel, and he said the N-word on his show. So we're going to make sure that everyone sees that if you step out of line, we're going to use this guy as an example, and we're going to say that Groypers are the equivalent of Nazis, and now it's like, even if you're black, or you're a Jew, or you're a part of it, doesn't matter if you're a woman, it does not matter, because we're going to make this group the example. And so we'll take away every part of your humanity to interact in life. And they use these people as examples. So it doesn't matter if Eric said the same thing that you said. You're going to get in trouble for it, not him. For whatever, it doesn't even matter if you're white or male, whatever you can say. Simply because now Nick Fuentes is the target and the example and the scapegoat on the right wing, even like where his name's like a curse word. Where people, people told us we're retarded for having him on the show, as if it's like bringing someone on. It's like, oh no, I'm gonna like bust into flames or something like that. Who gives a shit?
Well, at the end of the day, I feel like if there's ideas ideas, right, that Elijah has that I disagree with. There are ideas that actually I don't really disagree with a ton of your ideas. You're pretty good, Eric.
I like
Eric, I like when you're here. I sit here just nodding. But no, there's things that, you know, as people even on the right wing, we all disagree amongst ourselves. And it's funny because, yes, do I think some of your ideas are not my favorite? For sure. And I would hope that they would never be enacted because I think that they would be disastrous in practice, but that's okay because they're not in practice as yet. But the thing is that I've never understood this entire deplatforming and depersoning thing because at the end of the day, the reason why I'm prepared to ask questions and legitimately just hear you out, because like I said, I had no basis of who you were until just now, is because if you've got a shit idea, then we can shoot it down with a better one. And vice versa. If I have a shit idea, you can shoot it down with a better one. Fine, fair enough. But I am interested. Why are you, I get the when you say oppressed and the fact that you have been depersoned, I think is disgusting what's happened to you. And I think it's disgusting what they've done to Laura Loomer. I think it's disgusting what they've done to Milo Yiannopoulos. Because again, if you have ideas, shoot them down with better ideas.
Benjamin.
There's tons of them. Yeah, there's tons of people. The fact that like even when Chase Banks started just closing people's accounts, they did that to Laura Loomer. It's revolting to me.
I remember that started a lot of that. Like
I'm
James
banned
Alsop,
from,
they got
from
too.
Uber, and that is very annoying.
Yeah.
That is very annoying being banned from frickin' Uber. I'm just like, that's the only place I'm banned from.
What are you all banned from?
But I want to know why your audience is
Literally
oppressed.
everything. Why my audience?
Why
Well,
are they oppressed?
Because, you know, first of all, we have attitude. You know, we've got grit. We're real sort of like groypers with attitude. I think that's kind of what people like about us. You know, firstly, I'll just say, you know, some people say, oh, well, the groypers are too antagonistic. I think that's a reason why people like them, because we are energetic. We're not like these baby conservatives that are, you know, they show up to these college Republican meetings with like their pocket protector and they're like, I really like Josh Hawley and I like common good originalism. And groypers are like, you know, it's America first, bitch. And like, we like that. But the reason why they're oppressed is these are young guys. These are young, virile, like, in many cases, teenagers, 20-something. A lot of people think they're mostly white. There's a lot of Hispanics. There's a lot of black guys. They're mostly guys. And, you know, their whole lives, they have been oppressed. They've been oppressed by, you know, their parents, their libtard parents, if their parents are divorced or overbearing moms, oppressed by the education system, oppressed by the media. Everything's been taken from them. Their movies, their video games, the women have been alienated and turned against them. Everything's been taken away. And, you know, the big problem, I think where the antagonism arises from, is then you've got this conservative establishment, which is not, I wouldn't say it's the people in this room. I don't see a lot of establishment in this room. But, you know, when you see a lot of these pundits or people on Fox News, excluding, of course, Tucker, and other places, they sort of talk down to these people and tell them that the real solution is something like, you know, learn to code, get a job. You know, men just aren't doing their part. Like, for example, when it comes to the women conversation, it always comes back to, well, you know, men just aren't good enough. You need to put down the video games and stop doing this and and it turns into this sort of nagging thing. And so the reason why my followers particularly are hostile to the conservative establishment, it's sort of like, you know, we're in dire straits, young men, and the people that supposedly represent our side don't represent us and don't appreciate us and are not really talking about our real problems. And that's where a lot of the antipathy comes from. And I'm sort of like an avatar of them. You know, I'm like them. I'm of them. I'm just another one of these Zoomers, just more talented and a genius. And so they see me as like, as an avatar who has been, you know, I've thrown myself into the machine and people see what's been done to me. And it's sort of like they feel it, you know, they see it, they relate to it, and they feel it. And so it's sort of like me, it's like I'm Joker, you know, in like that movie.
But again, I guess my thing too, sort of
Joker?
Yeah, Joker.
Sort of like I was saying before, though, I mean, take someone like me, for example, right? The way that I got into politics was through men's rights. And that's something that I really care about because I love men and I care about them being treated fairly, particularly in, you know, the court system and particularly when it comes to fatherhood and what have you. And I really care about that. And these are things where back in Australia, I've had marches, I've contributed a lot of money to the issue. Like, I've done things that I think might help push the envelope, and I talk about this a lot on my channel. With some of your views, again, you might alienate a lot of people who would otherwise be ready to support you and your followers. And if you are oppressed like you think you are, then you are alienating particularly women. There's so many women you don't realize who really, really wants the best for men. And I simply don't understand this, oh, you know, let's sort of push women to maybe the corner in some capacity when, like, again, otherwise people like me and other anti-feminist women are like, yep, cool, like let's fight for men's rights because we care about that.
Yeah.
I mean, is that not problematic?
This is problematic. I mean, see, this is kind of, but see, this is why I have to be
guess I
the
can press
way
the
that I
look.
am, because I break the mold.
if I
If you
do
want to
this,
watch
I
a
just
show
don't
that
know.
what you're asking for is
Goes there,
pandering.
goes
If you want
there.
a
No,
show,
I'm not.
you
I'm,
kind of
I'm,
are.
I'm asking you, is it not? No, because framing is everything, right? You can promote an idea that might be inaccessible to people when you say, yep, we should just cut all the tails off the cats.
Mhm.
And people go, no, that's animal
Maybe it
abuse,
goes
that's
up
a jerk,
though,
that's a
right?
horrible idea. But if you come to it, you go, look, it actually helps with this,
I
that, and
can
the
go
other, and you
here,
actually provide
in which case
reasoning
you
from
go
any of your
back.
viewpoints, people go, okay, that's actually not so psychotic. Yes, I can get on board with that. But if you're like, yep, women this or I actually, you know, because again, I don't have any sound bites from you saying things about women, so I'm not going to put words in your mouth. But if you do have some sort of bizarre
total
opinion
accent.
towards women that might not be based on reality, but rather from, I don't know, maybe a negative experience, maybe trauma, I don't know what your background's like. And I'm saying, like, maybe there's some issues
I
here that
mean,
need to be
I have a
unpacked,
good
that.
example of
especially
this.
for, you know, some of your audience. I'm assuming that they've not had particularly nice experiences in life so far. But rather than, you know,
so
going
it's
into the
probably
world
this.
being angry and trying to bash people because they don't 100% align with you, I don't understand how that's pushing the envelope or helping anybody.
But that's not it. We're not bashing people
Dude,
because
do
they
you
don't
read
align.
the stuff that your people say? And
But
they
that's-
make it personal too. They're not saying you've got a shit idea. They attack you as a human being.
See, this is what I'm talking about. It's just sort of like this, like, don't you think that's problematic? Like, don't you think women like me are like? It's like, you know, listen, we don't have time for political correctness. We don't have
It's not
time
about
to
being politically correct. It's
pander
about
to
not
the
demonizing
feelings of women.
50% of the population.
We're not demonizing them. Listen, we're more
Do you read
based
your own
than
comments?
anybody.
Do you read your own comments?
I read my comments.
So
yes.
you're aware of how these people feel about women.
Yes.
And women's just the example. I'm sure that they have
Wait,
shitty
can I
opinions towards a
actually
myriad of other people.
want to cut in here and say this. This is actually important. Is
Oh,
this is what actually what my wife noticed. She's a good woman. She stays at home. She doesn't want to work. I think she's a very she's what I wanted in a wife, right? I think that's kind of actually what you said, doing for a woman. Like I always joke.
No,
like,
just wants
everything.
to make a bunch of little children and
Yeah,
then
yeah, but it's
He
like
wants to
but
do
it's
the
like,
Epstein
Run
thing.
up and
No,
send
he
them
wants
off.
to do the Jeffrey Epstein. He just wants to clone
no,
him.
but like I don't really think
Yeah.
that men and women were like really made to
maybe
be
in a couple
friends.
years, Nick, you'll be able to just drop your sperm into a thing and then a baby will be
Honestly,
no
born.
women required.
You can do that already.
Much
but-
better, yeah.
Yeah, I'll say, but no, but
That's
my
true.
Better
my
option.
point was what I thought was interesting,
There's
especially
the
with
draw.
like young dudes,
But
is I went to a
if-
convention
what if
for the
you
American Populist Union in Florida, and what was
go
interesting
here,
was
this
these are just
is
a bunch of young
basically
dudes. One thing that my wife noticed
totally
was that
fucked,
she,
isn't it?
she had just stopped by to bring me something.
I go here.
I'd forgotten a piece of sound equipment or something like that.
and
Is that she was saying like while she stood
Alright,
there,
I go
was
here.
that
You go here.
the young boys
I go here.
seem to
You
be
go
not
here.
like they seem to be
Ah, I see.
anti-woman or
Okay,
bitter
that's
at
why.
women, rather than like,
What?
hey, I'm gonna actually
Oh, I
like
guess
you
they
said,
could
like I'm
do-
gonna live a society
Oh,
where I'm gonna
how-
make money,
yeah.
and I don't believe in
It's hard with this
egalitarianism. I don't
asshole
think women
in
and
the
men are
background.
traditionally friends in the way that
Um,
society says they are, and I don't think that husbands and wives have to be friends in the way that you think they are, and that there's there's a place for
gotta
women,
be
and even
careful.
traditionally when couples hung out, the men hung out together outside and barbecued and did whatever they went to the gentlemen's clubs, not the current strip clubs, but like actual male spaces, and women had their own female spaces, and there was this together but separate ideology.
Quits.
And she was saying that she just goes, I'm just nervous, right, as a woman, that like rather than men trying to become strong men that
Alright,
would
let's
attract a
turn
traditional
on
woman who wants
her,
to stay in her place, that it
and
becomes
that's
a
the real
movement, like she was
that
saying,
sucks.
that is just about being like it
So
comes
I'm gonna
across
try to learn
anti-woman,
material.
not pro-traditional
doesn't
woman.
quite look like
And
a
that's all I
meeting.
think she's trying to say.
A
That's
meeting
I
that-
thought it was a fair observation from my wife of like, like
Whew.
not that they need to create the space or a car is
I
for
wonder.
driving. They don't need to have women in here. They don't need to invite women. They can ban women. Who cares? But she was just saying that like a lot of these young guys she spoke to were just like, haha, shut up, bitch, you're a woman.
Yeah.
Rather,
Yeah.
which is fair if you're like 21. But when you're like when you start to get older and you want to reproduce,
When you're
and women
mature,
have
you're
a-
like, quiet, bitch.
you think
Excuse me.
well, but I'm saying that you actually take the authority and not just like say you have it. It's like you live it out in your real world with your wife, and you actually provide her the home, and you give her the place and the position to be in her place, type of thing. It's like, well, women should be in their place. Well, your job is to provide that place. Like we're supposed to marry them and give them the home, so that you wanted them to stay home. But
this.
who's giving them the home? It's a man who knows what the fuck he's doing. So like, it's like I see that instead it's just like, well, women need to be somewhere. Well, what where are the women gonna share your bedroom in your mom's house? Like where are the women gonna? You want them in the kitchen? Which kitchen? Who's giving them the kitchen? And like that's what I worry about too with some of these like younger movements. Is it's very based,
I don't see why that's
but not always based in
the best
reality.
way.
No, I think it is based in reality because,
Okay.
again, you have to, it's all contextual, which is to say that look at the society that we live in, which is like this insane, shrill, shrieking, feminist society. And it's within the context of this where my show is a place where it's like men talking about women, how we really feel. Not pandering to them like they're a voting bloc, not pandering to them like we necessarily need their approval or need to win them over or something. My show's a show for men. Politics, in my opinion, is really it's a domain of men. And I'm speaking to men politically on the nature and the role of women, and the sort of attitude.
I wonder what this guy's like background is. Born 1998. Holy fucking shit. Political content on streamer. Channel was banned. Anti-Semitic, denied. Holy shit. Incel movement. Authoritarian government. Heckle Turning Points Culture War Tour. Nice. So he's even like a prick to conservatives. It does something that like people of his like extremity, like they're gonna need to talk to someone who's a bit more, I think, empathetically conservative. That way, just because they have more that they agree on. Like most people can't just do like a total view shift overnight. Illinois, Lyons High School. President of school council, or student council, shit. Studied introductory international relationships politics during his freshman year at Boston. Dropped out after completing his freshman year. Claiming he received threats for attending the white supremacist Unite the Right rally in Virginia. He said that he would transfer to Auburn. Say Auburn has better weather and better people, though he did not confirm his enrollment or continue his education. I mean, he can speak well, I guess, but I mean, fuck, man, he's 25. Mexican descent. That's according to him. Involuntarily celibate. I mean, it's not, yeah, some of the stuff I've heard sounds more like he's voluntarily. What's the fucking end goal, bro? I'm sure he was part of the rallies for January 6th. Nice. Really, a video of his speech was played during the second impeachment trial. Okay. Received large donations. Jeez. People are nuts, man. So you didn't get too many. A lot on this guy, holy shit. Yeah, he's basically just like anti everything that makes fucking sense. Praise the Taliban, holy shit, which I think he did in this, yeah, he did in this. He said, you should treat women how the Taliban does. That's great. It's fucking nuts, yeah. Okay. I don't, it's like, I kind of just wish people wouldn't give this guy the time of day. But it is the entertainment industry, and you're just gonna get entertainment by having two totally different views clash, so. Oh well, but, yeah, anyway, I'm probably gonna call it call it quits for this. I wonder if there's like a better job. I don't know, man. I mean, do Trump's. I think he like basically. got the full indictments. Holy shit. I'm probably not gonna read this whole thing, at least not on the stream, but Jesus. I say he's basically had like a shit ton of boxes of classified documents, some were like super secret, like military grade, and I mean you can't have the government betraying everything to the public because, well, they're fucking people. And if the public knows about it, everybody knows about it, so. Perjury. Oh shit. Get down. Grand jurors. Man. It's like, I don't understand how people can like vote for him still, and it's just like a total ignorance. Yeah. Jeez. Man, this is Region 1. So, members of the enterprise, including several of the defendants, created false electoral college documents and recruited individuals to convene and cast false electoral college votes at the Georgia State Capitol in Fulton County on December 14th, 2020. After the false electoral college votes were cast, jeez. Holy fuck, so he so he had fake votes. Even though he accused the left of doing that. Holy shit. Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Holy shit. The unlawfully change. Like, how? I don't know if he's fucking stupid or if he's just fucking evil. I mean, you think he would try to do just like a better job covering stuff up, you'd think. But anyway, holy shit. I mean, maybe I'll probably try to read this on stream sometime. Holy fuck, that's wild. This is long too, man. Yeah. Anyway, I think we'll call it a day. But yeah, check out pbs.org to find that. The news hour. Because that's just fucking nuts, man. So anyway, we'll probably make another video on this just to read through it because it's very interesting. But yeah, I think now we'll call it a day. And yeah, thanks for showing up. Appreciate it.